About Hoops here at DeMatha with DeMatha head coach Mike Jones. Our new series with a spotlight on coaches. Coach Jones, thanks for taking the time with us. Got a few questions for you.
I'm ready.
Obviously, coach at DeMatha, a lot of pressure comes with that job. I'm curious as to how you get the process of getting the job at DeMatha. I'm sure there are a lot of people interested in that job. Just talk about that process.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll try to give you the short answer. I think I was just very fortunate. I was Coach Wooten's assistant coach for 4 years. When I stopped playing ball, I came back, became one of his assistant coaches, and it was I call it right place, right time. I was one of his assistants when he decided to step aside, and because of my basketball playing experience and working with him, and Neil Murphy was one of his assistants at the time. I learned so much from them. He stepped aside. Neil and I took on the task of quote unquote replacing Coach Wooten together, but I was chosen as the head coach, and I'm so grateful for Coach Murphy and all the help that he provided me. But a lot of people wanted the job. A lot of people thought I was too young for the job, but God's blessings and grace, things kind of worked out. So,
take us through a little bit of your growing up. Everyone knows you went to DeMatha and went to Old Dominion, but just give us a little more background on.
Kid from Largo, grew up. I wasn't. I would kind of pat myself on the back because I was not just a naturally gifted player. I worked really hard. I'm proud of that. All my friends used to tease me because they would hang out or they'd drive past my street and see me out in my backyard shooting or dribbling or doing something. My parents, it wasn't necessarily our plan for me to come to DeMatha, but sometime during my middle school years, I started to get to improve as a basketball player, and in Prince George's County especially, but in the DMV, at that point in time, if you were good, DeMatha was definitely something you at least thought about. So my parents gave me the opportunity to come here. My brother went to Largo High School. That's where I thought I would always go with all my friends, but when the opportunity to come to DeMatha came about, quick story, I'm in the 8th grade. My dad contacts Coach Wooten about my interest in coming here. Coach Wooten sends out one of his guys at our request to come and watch me play, one of his assistants. I thought I had the best game ever. I had like 30-some points. I played really well. I had never played that well, had never scored that many points before. And after the game, my dad asked the coach, what his assessment was, and he said, if he comes to DeMatha, the only thing I can guarantee you is that he'll get a great education. And like that, it was like somebody punched me in my gut. I was like, my father told me the story, and I'm just like, are you serious? Like, I played as well as I could.
Right.
But, back then, that's the way it was. And, we took a leap of faith. We came here. I barely made the freshman team. I was the 16th man on a 16-man team. I didn't have a left hand. There was a lot of things, flaws in my game, because I had not truly been taught how to play yet. But I got here, and by January of my freshman year, I was starting on the freshman team. I was leading scorer on the JV team, and then I started as a junior and a senior. And again, things worked out. Obviously, a lot of other things impacted that. I grew a lot. I think I worked really hard. I spent a lot of time working on my game, and I really embraced the coaching that I got here. So, I definitely would be one to say Morgan Wooten and Lester Butler. Lester Butler was my AU coach. Those two men, those two coaches really helped form me into a pretty good basketball player.
And then after DeMatha, Old Dominion?
Old Dominion, they broke a rule with me because I played inside here. My senior year, we went 30-0, but I was recruited as a guard to go to college, even though I'd never really played guard before. I went to Old Dominion. I sat on the bench for 2 years, was whining, complaining, but I still worked hard. And I wound up starting as a junior, being second team all-conference, and started as a senior and was one of the better players in the CAA. Had a couple of NCAA tournament runs while I was there. And I had a great college career, scored over 1,000 points. And, again, in my situation, a lot of other guys would have transferred. Nowadays, everybody transfers at some sign of adversity. But I think I picked the right school for the right reasons, and it worked out for me. And then after, I signed as a free agent with the Indiana Pacers in '95, my first year out of school. Really thought I had a great chance to make it. Wound up getting cut. Played my first season overseas in Finland. Came back, went back to camp with the Pacers and got cut again, and wound up going to play in the IBA, which was part of the CBA in North Dakota. Averaged almost 30 points a game. Played really, really, really well. Had a bunch of opportunities to go overseas and make pretty good money. I decided to go to Portugal. I played there for most of my season that year, my third year, and then came back and finished the season back with my team in North Dakota. Played in Hong Kong a few summers, played in the Dominican Republic a few summers, and I really enjoyed my my early adult years and playing basketball, traveling the world, and doing something I love to do.
And how old were you when you started coaching here at DeMatha as an assistant?
25, I
25.
believe. Yeah, that was always my plan. If I wasn't in the NBA by the time I was 25, I needed to hang up my shoes. So
When did the idea of becoming a head coach enter your mind? Was that something in high school that you thought was?
So I always thought I would coach eventually. I was too young to think about head coach, assistant coach. I wanted to coach. I knew that whenever I stopped playing basketball, and for me, again, somebody who wasn't just a phenom and everybody wanted, thought I was really good, I always figured that at some point in time, the end of the run would come and I would have to start coaching, and that's what I look forward to doing. I really can't pinpoint when I've thought about becoming the head coach here at DeMatha. There's definitely a story there. I'll save it for the book one day, but it was definitely not long before all the stuff with whether or not Coach Wooten was going to retire came about. So,
Fast forward to DeMatha a little bit. What year did you just complete here at DeMatha?
my 15th.
15th season.
Yeah.
I know it's been a while since you won a championship.
Yeah.
Tell me about the pressures that come with DeMatha basketball, the fact that you've had incredible talent that you haven't been able to win with for the last few years, and just
you make it sound so bad.
How much that eats you up.
Well, I think just me being a competitive person, it wouldn't matter what the circumstances were, talent-wise or anything. It's funny, we had a graduation today, and our graduation speaker, DeMatha graduate, Dr. Curtis Turner, who was an educator, principal on the board of directors, but he's the principal at St. Francis up in Baltimore. And he kind of spoke about how we don't really know how it happens, but when you're from DeMatha and you graduate from DeMatha, any competition, music, athletics, anything, mock trial, when you walk in the gym, you walk in the courtroom, when you walk in the concert hall, you assume you're going to win. And it's not arrogance, that's just the way we're built here. And every season I go into, I think, okay, we're going to win, number whatever, championship. And that's always our goal. Obviously, it's been a task the last few years. Our league is really good. You can't take anything away from them, but it hasn't happened. It eats me up. I hate talking about it, but the game is changing to bring about new challenges, I think, and the challenge for us now is to get back on top, and it's not the easiest thing, or everybody will be able to win a championship, but we're not in the league where that's just a foregone conclusion, and we got some work to do, and I think we're doing that.
Briefly talk about your role with USA Basketball.
My role with USA Basketball has been, first of all, a pleasure. It's been a blessing. It kind of came out of nowhere. So back in 2004, I think I completed my second season as the head coach here, and I got a call from USA Basketball to go participate and help coach in the U.S. Olympic Festival, Youth Development Festival that they used to have. Was assistant coach to Coach Herman Hareed from up in Baltimore. We've been great friends ever since. I'm assuming, the name DeMatha and my affiliation with Nike at the time, that was the end of my first year as a Nike coach. Kind of opened that door for me, and then I didn't hear from him for 10 years. for 6 years. I didn't hear from him again until 2010. But the opportunity came to join Coach Showalter's staff in the youth development program that had just started. Quinn Cook was on the first ever team that they had with a world championship component to it. And at the time, Quinn played here, and I think that kind of opened the selection committee staff to me as a coach, because Quinn came and started on the 16 and under team, they won. They started on the 17 and under team, they won a gold medal. And I think he really helped me with my first appointment. And then I won't say bugged them, but every opportunity that's presented itself for me to participate in training camp as a court coach, doing that. The Hoop Summit gets involved in that. And so I've done something pretty much every calendar year since then. Last summer I was not supposed to be with them, but one of the coaches took a college job and opening came up, and I was who they selected. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity. It's helped me see the best players. I advocate for the DMV players all the time. Jeremy Roach from Paul VI, who kicked our butt this year in the playoffs, he's out with the 16 and under team right now, and I know I worked really hard this winter trying to convince the USA staff that he deserved that, and like I said, he almost single-handedly knocked us out of the playoffs. So, to say he deserved it would be an understatement.
You mentioned a college coach, a coach on USA had left to take a college job. Would open that up for you. That kind of leads into my next question. I'm sure you've had opportunities to coach college, to coach, various levels of basketball on top of the high school level. Mm-hmm. Talk about how difficult that is. If Morgan Wooten's, the fact that he coached here for so long, do you feel like there's some kind of expectation for you to coach here for a long time? Where are we in terms of that?
Well, obviously, it's the famous stories of Coach Wooten being offered plenty of college jobs and not taking any of them. I don't feel like that affects me at all. This is just truly a place that I feel at home. I think that there's a purpose for me here. Obviously we're not always, at the ultimate level of success here, but I do believe our kids are very well behaved. They're getting a great education. They're taught how to play basketball the right way. They're influenced to improve as individuals on and off the court, and they all go to college. And most of them are very successful in college, and I do believe that that's something that's kind of my purpose. That's my goal, and as long as that's the case, I'll never say never, but I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be right now.
But what if that dream job opened up at college? What if one of the big dogs came knocking with a huge 7-figure offer next year? How tough would that be?
It obviously it'd be tough, but one thing that I know I've learned from my family and from Coach Wooten is that you never make a decision because of finances. Because the money's more over there, you don't do that. If that was the case, I wouldn't be here. We don't get paid a lot for this. A lot of people, you complain about your high school coach or your AU coach, and if you really took into consideration the time we put into this, it's a thankless job, because everybody believes they should be, the next NBA superstar. But then also all the time that we spend away from our families, and sometimes it breaks up families because you're so committed to doing something that isn't your blood. So I think a lot of times when people look at that, and I know this wasn't your question, but a lot of times when people look at that, you need to consider everything. And not just myself, but all of us coaches, I think we really dedicate a lot and give a lot for a profession that a lot of times you don't get the thank you that you should.
I've always heard from head coaches that having a good group of assistant coaches is a must and is, so important. Talk about that aspect, especially since there's so much turnover in terms of assistant coaches. Every assistant coach wants to become a head coach. I've seen in your situation over the years so many new guys coming in and out. Talk about how you delegate those responsibilities and how important it is to do that.
Yeah, well, I think a couple things. First of all, I think I'm in a unique situation where many of the coaches here at DeMatha went here and played here. Most of us, when I started out, played for Coach Wooten, and now I've had quite a few guys that I actually coached and have come back to help. So it's easier here for me because of the continuity. Like, they already know me, I already know them, we already know each other's personality. Been very blessed. I've had a couple guys that they don't have aspirations to coach beyond DeMatha, to be on my staff here. They have real jobs, government jobs, that they get paid very well. And this is something that they truly just love to do, and that goes back to my previous point. Like, you got guys really sacrificing a lot of time for something they don't have to do. There's no, this is not putting food on their table. So, Reggie Vini's been on my staff since I got the job. Tommy Palucci, who is no longer day-to-day directly involved with our program, but those two guys have been like my right-hand men from day one. And all of the success that we've had, all of the pros that we've had, all the college scholarships that we've had, like, they are a huge part of that. And then younger guys coming up. Kevin Cromer isn't younger, but he joined our staff a little bit later. Sam Anstead joined our staff a little bit later. Those guys are really kind of like my circle. They're not afraid to tell me no. They're not afraid to tell me wrong. We talk all the time. The Markelle Fultz story. I had a lot of those guys tell me when he was a sophomore that we were making a mistake by not having him on the varsity team. It was an argument, to put it lightly. So I think I do a pretty good job of surrounding myself with guys that are not just going to tell me or agree with me. And I think that's very valuable for me. I've been very happy to have coached guys that have gone on: Corey McCray, Marshall Cho, Sam Krosnick, Chris Ramos. Like, all those guys have moved on. Having Tilden Brill, won a state championship, was #1 ranked team in the state of North Carolina this past season. Just really, really proud of the coaching tree that's kind of developing around me.
I want to ask you a little bit more about that Markelle Fultz situation, because now, as he's projected to be the #1 or one of the top couple picks in the upcoming draft, and his story gets repeated over and over and over again, and the whole journey of him not making varsity his sophomore year really comes to light on the national scene, and a lot of people are like, who's that coach? Why did he do that? And I'm sure you're getting a lot more people asking you about that now than before Markelle was such a national, on the national spotlight. I mean, just talk a little bit more about that and your reflections on the whole thing.
So I guess the easy answer is, if I had it to do all over again, Markelle would have been on varsity. I mean, but that's an easy answer. Obviously, we all see what he's become, and like, who wouldn't say that? The thing I'm just, and there's no way I knew this was going to happen, but the thing I guess I'm most proud of is just that it did not deter him from becoming potentially the best player to ever play here, potentially the #1 draft pick in the NBA draft, and potentially, like, his ceiling is just limitless. And whatever right, wrong decision that I made, and clearly I take full responsibility for that, with the story I just told you, it didn't stop him. It didn't stop him. If anything, it motivated him, and I'm not in any way trying to take credit, but it fostered a hunger in him and an attitude and a motivation in him that clearly he's taken it and just run with it. So all credit goes to him and his family, the way he was brought up. I got his ceremony here a couple weeks ago where we honored him for being, the college All-American that he was, and obviously what the future holds. A lot of places can say, DeMatha can say we've blessed a lot of our 9,872 graduates, whatever it is. Markelle was one of the guys that truly blessed us by being here. I mean, the example that he set for so many just students in general. Markelle is one of those few guys that have come through here, did not have one enemy, did not have one teacher that complained about him, didn't have one classmate that thought, oh, well, he thinks he's better. Like, he really was everybody's friend. He was every teacher's favorite student. Like, he was the guy that would pick up trash in the cafeteria. He was the guy that would show up in the morning to get extra work in academically on a game day. Like, this is just, he's a special kid. And the only thing that you can attribute that to is, for obviously, God and his mom. And I mean, he really was raised the right way.
Do you think that situation has changed the way that maybe you look at younger guys, the way you look at when you make decisions as to who's going to play JV or varsity, does that impact your decision making, you think, at all?
Well, the one thing is I'm not foolish enough to think that there's another Markel Fultz out there, and every time I move a sophomore down to JV, like he's going to be, like I'm not foolish enough to think that. Does it impact the way I look at things? Obviously, I listen to the other guys a little bit more now. I mean, because clearly they were right. People aren't built like Markel, though. Like, you know, and I don't want to make a mistake by giving someone something that, you know, because I'm afraid that, well, you're not going to have the work ethic of a Fultz, so I'm going to go ahead and keep you because I don't want to lose you. Like, those are the things that, again, nobody really understands unless you are a coach, that you have to, like, I want a great team, I want great talent here, but in some decisions you make, that takes, you know, well, if I do that, is he going to leave? And that's just that fine line that you have to navigate. And every coach, you know, pokes his chest out, well, I'm going to just do it my way. And you have to be willing to adjust, and I think I have adjusted somewhat. Ultimately, though, I got to be able to sit right with my decisions, and, you know, my spirit has to be able to sit right with my decisions. And I try to do things for the right reasons. And, you know, what I tell kids all the time, I think about the best thing for the program and the best thing for the individual. It's not one that, you know, I'm only going to make a decision for the program or I'm only going to make a decision for the individual. It's all things considered. But ultimately, like, this is a great place. It's going to work out. You just got to, you know, have some trust and faith in it.
Let me ask you a little bit about recruiting. I know everyone's very familiar with recruiting from high school to college, but a lot of people aren't really familiar with recruiting from junior high school to high school, or recruiting public school kids to private school kids. Talk about that aspect of the job and just kind of enlighten us on how.
So it's hard, you know, I'll tell you this right now, and any high school coach that doesn't admit this, they're lying to you. A tall mom walks in the gym, you want to know who her son is, because chances are her son's going to be tall. So, you know, we go to PYBL games. I'm so thankful for them. You know, the PYBL did not exist a few years ago. They have done a great job of getting the best 7th and 8th graders in gyms for us to be able to see play, giving those guys the outlet and the stage to be able to play on, that we have an opportunity to evaluate. But recruiting, so I'm glad you asked this, so because this gives me a perfect opportunity. So we all recruit against each other. We all, like, you know, Mark Stern's the best player in the city. Every WCAC school and some of the IAC schools and some of the Beltway League schools, we're all going to be recruiting that kid. And just like colleges, everybody has different strategies. Some, you know, I'm going to talk about DeMatha. I'm not going to talk about why you shouldn't go to another school. I'm going to talk about why you should come here. I'm also not going to recruit 20 different guys. Like, and again, not to say that's right or wrong, but we have a strategy here that works for us. Some other guys, you know, they throw out a wide net and see what they get back. Like, we truly try to evaluate and then pinpoint, some years 3 guys, some years 5 guys, but whatever it is, we pinpoint guys that we want to go after, and we get 3 out of 3, great.
But what if you get none out of 3? I mean, you have to have recruits come in.
But it's happened before. So no offense to my rising senior class now, but none of those guys were recruited to come here. We went after 2 guys that year. 2, that's it. One, both of them went to schools in our league. We did not get either one of them. Now, we know why. We knew it was going to be very difficult because our graduating senior class now at the time was DJ Harvey, was Ryan Allen, was Kristen Dyches, was DJ Mitchell, and was Quentin Drayton. If you were an 8th grader looking at those 5 9th graders in front of you, you're just like, well, I won't be able to play big minutes until I'm a senior. So you wouldn't want to come here. And we understood that. So we tried to pick 2 guys that we really thought would fit in really well with us, but that's kind of just the way that went. And so it's happened before where we've picked 2 guys, didn't get either one of them, and now we're with a class that I think has some talent in it, but these are guys that went to our camp and really wanted to come to DeMatha. Justin Geelan, great player, so thankful that he's here. But a lot of the reason why he's here is because his dad went here, graduated from here, played basketball here. So it was kind of his older brother went here. He's a great soccer player. The soccer program really wanted him. And we kind of took for granted, well, Justin's going to come anyway. So, we didn't go out and see him play as an 8th grader. Because we didn't feel like we had to, and obviously we're very happy that he's here.
Do you guys do home visits? I mean, how does the actual recruiting?
Yeah, no. Again, I'll speak for myself because I know some schools have been rumored to do that. I don't. I do not go to a family's house to recruit them. Now, a few years ago, I could say I have done it once. He wasn't even a basketball player; he was a football player. But our families had a relationship, and I went over because the family asked me to come over and talk to them. But I do not go to a player's home. That's a little much, in my opinion. We get them to come here, and we'll talk to them here, and they get to come to all our home games if they want to. We leave their name at the gate. We try to go to see as many of their games in the winter as possible, in the spring and the summer. So that they really understand what our interest is, but no home visits.
Well, thank you for your candid insight on that. I know it's a topic that isn't discussed very much, so we appreciate it.
Anytime you want to, Mark, we can have a round table that you can invite parents to, and I'm sure I'm not the only coach that would love to sit on a panel and talk about that, because again, the DeMatha way isn't necessarily the right way or the wrong way. There's a lot of different viewpoints, but I think for younger parents, for them to be able to hear what we look for, what our strategy is, what our philosophy is, I think that's something that would be helpful. So if you ever want to get that together, count me in.
All right. If you could give advice to an aspiring coach out there, maybe a kid who played high school ball in the area who is looking for work and loves basketball, what kind of advice would you give to someone out there who was in your shoes at one point?
Be around the game as much as you can. Work basketball camps, go to basketball clinics, coaching clinics. I say try to be the coach that you'd want to play for, but that's hard. That's very hard to do. Be yourself. Don't try to imitate somebody. Don't try to, well, I saw Bobby Knight do it this way, so I'm going to try to do it that way. I saw, Coach K do it this way, so I'm going to try to do it. You can't really do that. Kids are really smart. They know when something's genuine, and if you're basically pretending, they'll be able to figure that out pretty easily. So, be yourself. I do believe you have to love the game, and I also believe you have to be in it for the right reasons. Unfortunately, there are some coaches that want to make a lot of money, or they want to have the fame of coaching, but they don't necessarily love the process of coaching, or they're not in it for the kids. They're not in it to see guys, reach their dreams and their goals. And that's the ugly side of it, at least in my opinion. Like, when you're not in it for those reasons, that just makes it very difficult to, I think, really serve the purpose that you are as a coach, and that's to help advance, for me, young men, but young people in general, for all coaches.
Best player you've ever coached against at DeMatha?
Best player I've ever coached against. So I'm going to give you 3 names, and no offense to anybody else, but the first one that comes to mind is obviously the most recent, and that's Chris Likes. When you say the best player, I'm thinking of guys that truly kept me up at night, trying to figure out how you want to stop them. And Chris Likes is probably the most dynamic player above anyone that we've coached against, because he just made shots from anywhere under crazy circumstances. The first time I ever coached against him his freshman year, DJ Harvey guarded him. Chris Likes struggled, and I'm thinking, okay, well, we're good. And then every game we played against him after that, he was clearly a star in the making, and very proud, but I'm extremely happy that he's gone. The other 2 are Chris Wright and Scotty Reynolds, 2 guys that, again, scared me because they could score the ball, they could influence the game in so many ways by making plays for other guys. Scotty Reynolds scored 40 points or more twice against us back-to-back years. Chris Wright, we played against him, I think, 2 or 3 straight years in the WCAC championship, 2 years in a row in the semifinals the first year. And again, he always had St. John's in a position to be able to beat us by himself. So those would be the 3, but Chris Likes was the scariest.
All DeMatha team in your tenure here as a DeMatha coach. 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a
Oh,
center.
man. I could name you 25 people. So, you
Point guard.
It's got to be, well, it depends on what you consider some guys. So Nigel Munson is easily on the list. Like Nigel Munson is like his junior year we went 29-2. His senior year we went 34-1. Like he is clearly like.
So he's your one.
He's one of them.
Who's your 2?
Again, what position is Markel? Markel played.
You can put him anywhere from 1 to 3.
Yeah, so Terrell Allen, Nigel Munson, Markel Fultz, Austin Freeman. You're going to get me in trouble. These guys are going to give me such a hard time. Mamadi Diani, Jeff Allen. Oh, man. B.J. Anya with his block shots, but Desmond Adegigi for being able to score, Jeray Grant, Jeremy Grant, Jaron Grant, Victor. I mean, Quinn, do you count Quinn? It's, oh my gosh, I couldn't name 2 at each position. That's just too hard. I think I said enough names. All you rest of you guys, I apologize. He's giving me that sign behind the camera, so I got to stop naming names. It's just a lot. I've been very blessed, obviously.
If there was a pickup game with all coaches in the DMV, who would be the number 1 pick in a pickup game right now, today?
All the coaches.
All the head coaches.
All the head coaches in the DMV and, public school, private school,
public,
everything.
private, everything.
Oh, man. Well, first of all, if I'm picking and I know what I know, I'm picking myself. And I think my playing, forget coaching, I think my playing resume is pretty daggone good. So I'm picking myself. But knowing that I'm not picking and it's somebody else picking, I don't know. Some of these young guys, I'm getting old, my knees are going bad. Patrick Bean over at St. Mary's Riken, he's 6'7", 6'8". I was told he was a pretty good player in his day. People probably don't know Rob Garner was a great player in high school and in college, and went from Texas to Delaware, had a great career. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. McAloon probably couldn't play, so I give him a hard time. Coach Turner, back in the day at Blair, was a pretty good player, but I wouldn't pick him first either. He keeps ducking me on the golf course, so I could talk trash about him. I don't know. That's another good one. I'm gonna say myself. I'll stick with myself because I can back it up if we go shoot. So.
All right. Last question before we let you get out of here. Talk about your relationship with other coaches in the WCAC. We see you guys. You guys obviously know each other so well because there's so few teams and play each other so much. Talk about that relationship. How often do you see each other when it's not on the court? I know you guys get together to talk about all conference teams and that kind of stuff. Just talk about the relationship amongst all of you.
I thoroughly enjoy coaching in the WCAC. I think we have the best coaches. I think we work extremely hard, and I think we raise the level of each other as coaches. So I really enjoy the camaraderie of that. But we also hate each other, quote unquote. Not truly hate each other. At least I hope nobody hates me. But we hate each other in the heat of the moment. We at times have had some very choice words for one another because in the heat of the battle, we're so competitive. And again, I think that's, I won't say healthy, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. The relationship I have with a Joe Wooten, we graduated from DeMatha together. I spent a lot of time at his house when we played on the same team before games for pregame meals and things like that. Joe and I have butted heads since we've been head coaches against one another, but DeMatha is still a brotherhood and we're still brothers. Steve Turner, we've gone through basically the same thing at two different places. He replaced the legend there. I replaced the legend here. His first year there wasn't squeaky clean. They went through some tough times. My first year was ugly. And I remember back when he was going through it, I was 2 years ahead of him in terms of becoming a head coach. I remember we talked, that really nobody knows about. Like, we had plenty of conversations because I was trying to keep him encouraged because I probably was the only one that knew what he was going through. Coach McAlone comes along. We had known each other because we played against each other when he was at Benedictine. He comes along, and his first year he makes it to the championship game. We play golf together. I hate him when we're playing, but again, he's a great coach, and he's a really good guy, really good family man that I enjoy spending time with off the court. Tim Fudd I played against growing up. G.J. Kissel I played against growing up. There's a lot of guys. Neil Berkman over at Ireton, probably one of the most underrated coaches in our league. But I hate coaching against him because he's always got 2 or 3 tricks up his sleeve. But his team plays extremely hard. But again, I enjoy the fact that he's part of what I consider the best basketball league in the country, and he definitely is a big reason why. Coach Ben is new, and Glenn Ferrillo. I mean, he and Marty Keithline, both of them are, they won a lot of games. I've had some really big battles against them. Coach Ferrillo, we had a joke a couple years ago. Every game we played was decided by 3 points or less for I think 12, 13 straight games. I mean, it's unbelievable. We've had our battles. And then Coach Keithline over at McNamara, being another PG County school, we go after a lot of the same students. We go after a lot of the same players. But again, I have the utmost respect for him and the program that he's building there. Again, he followed behind and was on the staff with, Coach Campbell when he was there, Coach Sutton when he was there, and he followed behind those two guys that had varying levels of success and were very well-respected coaches. And that wasn't an easy job for him to take, but I think he's done a tremendous job, and he's got a ton of talent, and who knows, I hope this year isn't the year for him, but I know his day is coming. So.
Last thing, I know you don't have a platform to speak your mind. Is there anything that you want to say, you feel compelled to tell the people?
Well, first of all, I appreciate this, Mark. I'm glad that you're doing this. I probably won't watch this one, but I'll watch everybody else's, the other coaches, because again, I do believe, I touched on it earlier, this is something that, we're a fraternity, whether we acknowledge that or not. Like, what we go through, I think I'm blessed because I have great parents here, but, you have your battles with parents, you have your battles with kids, you have your battles with teachers, because you're trying to, encourage a kid to do something, but the teacher, is coming from a totally different angle. So you have so many things you're dealing with, the AAU side of the world and trying to coach the same kids. You're dealing with the trainers, you're dealing with the college coaches, you're dealing with, the kids with the girlfriends that, are distracted. I mean, there's just so much that goes into this job. I just feel as though, for us, this is something that we didn't get into it for the money because we don't get paid a lot. We didn't get into it for the fame and all the, the pats on the back because that's rare. We got into it because we want to help young people. And I truly believe that anyone, before you go complaining to everybody, you complain about your teacher, you complain about your boss, you complain about your coaches. So we complain about our president. Like, your no job is above that. But when you're complaining about me or when you're complaining about one of the coaches, just make sure you keep in the back of your mind, like, the time they're putting together, the time away from their family that they're putting into it, and they're doing it for next to nothing. I got some volunteer coaches on my staff. They don't get paid anything. They get some nice gear, but that's about it. And for them to do that and not blink an eye and still show up every day for 6 months, and this basketball is a year-round sport. I'm working on basketball all year long. You have to at least take that into consideration as you want to tell us how to do our job. So, but I appreciate it.
Mike Jones, appreciate the time.
Thank you.